Good to have you with us. I'm Paul Yee for Arirang News. Let's start with the headlines. The chief nuclear envoys from South Korea, the U.S., and Japan hold trilateral talks in Seoul, centered around North Korea's growing missile and nuclear threats. President Park Geunhye urges small and mid-sized companies to take full advantage of the government's efforts to provide support for job creation. The SMEs respond by vowing to create 130,000 new jobs over the next year. The Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention confirms the fifth case emerged in Korea in just the last 7 days. Seoul's health minister vows to take aggressive steps to prevent the spread of the deadly virus. Amid heightened tensions on the peninsula, the chief nuclear envoys from South Korea, the United States, and Japan met for talks in Seoul. Among the key agreements reached, stronger pressure and continued efforts for dialogue with North Korea. Hwang Sung-hee reports.
South Korea, the U.S., and Japan are set to ramp up pressure on North Korea. Speaking to reporters in Seoul, U.S. Chief Nuclear Envoy Sung Kim said that's one of the agreements reached at Wednesday's trilateral meeting.
Well, I think we agree that we should be exploring all opportunities to increase pressure in terms of better, stronger implementation of existing sanctions, but also looking at all other opportunities and avenues to increase pressure.
The talks come amid heightened tensions on the peninsula following North Korea's claims over progress in its nuclear program and testing of a submarine-launched ballistic missile. Refusing to comment on the authenticity of the claims, Kim said Washington submitted a letter to the UN Security Council Sanctions Committee expressing U.S. concerns. At the same time, the officials said they will not stop their active efforts to bring North Korea back to the stalled six-party nuclear talks.
As we agree on the importance of holding meaningful dialogue with North Korea, we exchanged views that we will continue such bilateral and multilateral efforts.
While the multilateral dialogue has been stalled for over 6 years, the officials outlined the importance of maintaining five-party unity with China and Russia. South Korean envoy Hwang Sung-hee stressed that Beijing is on the same page with the three allies on North Korea's nuclear ambitions.
China opposes North Korea's nuclear development. It holds the same position with South Korea, the U.S., and Japan on not tolerating North Korea's nuclear program.
The South Korean and American envoys will fly to Beijing on Thursday for talks with their Chinese counterpart, Woo Da-wei. Hwang Sung-hee, Arirang News.
North Korea has released a new video purporting to show what it claims was the successful test firing of a submarine-launched ballistic missile. The North's propaganda website 우리 민족끼리 released Wednesday a 2-minute video that shows a projectile surging from an underwater structure. The footage then shows the projectile flying into the sky along with a loud explosion after it shot out from the water. A caption reads that Pyongyang's successful test firing of the alleged missile will render useless the South Korea-U.S. alliance as well as the U.S. nuclear umbrella. The authenticity of the video has not yet been confirmed. The South Korean military says North Korea has recently deployed a high-speed wave-piercing boat with stealth capabilities to its west coast. Observers have raised concerns about the new vessels, which are difficult for radar to detect. Our Na Hong-kyung has the story.
North Korea's VSV, or Very Slender Vessel, can pierce through waves at high speeds of more than 90 kilometers per hour, even in heavy seas. Military officials in Seoul say the vessel the regime deployed to a naval command in the West Sea seems to be carrying 30mm guns and is capable of launching torpedoes. South Korea has been aware that Pyongyang was building the vessels and around 4 to 5 are said to be in operation, but this is the first time military officials have admitted that the boats have been deployed and spotted near the de facto inter-Korean maritime border in the West Sea. Experts say this is a huge threat to South Korea's frontline islands, especially because the boats are covered with stealth paint, making it more difficult for the South Korean Navy to detect them by radar. They add Seoul will have to review and revise its naval strategy against the North because South Korea's fastest boats are guided missile patrol gunboats with maximum speeds of about 70 kilometers per hour. In response to Wednesday's reports, Seoul's defense ministry said it is keeping a close eye on the development, adding that the military is on standby to immediately counter any and every type of provocation from the North. Seoul is planning to deploy 70mm ground-based guided missiles by next year to deter threats posed by the regime's air cushion vehicles and the new vessels. 나현경, Arirang News.
Rival political parties here in South Korea have agreed to pass a bill to reform the nation's deficit-ridden civil servant pension system. They will also create a special panel on reforming the national pension plan. Kim Myung-gil has the details.
Korea's ruling Saenuri Party and the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy will put the Public Employee Pension Reform Bill to a vote before the full parliament on Thursday. If the pension reform bill passes, public officials will have to pay more while in service and they'll receive less after retirement. The plan is expected to save the government an estimated $9 million per day. Regarding the national pension scheme for the general public, the rival parties agreed to continue their discussions via the creation of a new panel of experts, in addition to a parliamentary committee they agreed on earlier.
Once the parliamentary committee and the panel of experts are created, we will undertake negotiations seriously to reform the national pension system.
The two parties have been at odds over whether to change the national pension scheme to cover 50% of pre-retirement income from the current 40%. However, the opposition party has a new condition. It wants the health and welfare minister removed. They claim he would impede future bipartisan consultations on reforming the national pension service because he opposes raising national pension payouts.
Health and Welfare Minister Moon Hyung-pyo must take responsibility for making groundless arguments about our stance and saying that increasing national pension payouts will be a burden on the nation's finances.
Also on Thursday, lawmakers will vote on more than 50 economy-related bills that were put off last month after last-minute disagreements on the pension bill canceled voting. Kim Myung-gil, Arirang News.
President Park Geunhye invited Korea's small to mid-sized business leaders for an annual meeting today. Praising their contributions to creating jobs in the country, the president vowed more support for SMEs so they can focus more on hiring young talents. Chae Yu-sun reports.
Laying out figures that show small and medium-sized firms make up 99% of businesses in Korea and that they hire nearly 90% of all employees, President Park urged the country's SMEs to continue to offer high-quality jobs, especially for young job seekers. Meeting with representatives from SMEs at her office, the president vowed to support them by building the infrastructure to make Korea a center for startups in Asia. President Park's creative economy drive includes regional centers that foster startups and help them launch businesses overseas in collaboration with conglomerates. Several of the centers already plan to connect local entrepreneurs with foreign investors and offer conglomerate distribution channels to globally commercialize their products. Along with her summit diplomacy, President Park believes these efforts will not only help Korean SMEs to expand globally, but will give young people a hand in finding employment opportunities abroad. President Park then talked about the Korean service sector's potential to further expand and create more jobs. She highlighted the government's efforts to ease regulations and systematically develop the service sector, specifically in tourism and healthcare. In fact, the SMEs asked the government to speed up the regulatory reforms, with related bills now pending parliamentary approval. Expressing her frustration at the National Assembly, President Park called on the lawmakers to pass the bills promptly and help the country's young people realize their potential and find high-quality jobs. Chae Yu-sun, Arirang News.
Korea's fast-rising household debt set another record high in April, with the amount of money borrowed doubling from March. Not everyone is pessimistic about the surge, though, but some experts say the problem needs to be addressed. Shin Se-min reports.
Korea's household debt growth has hit another record high. The Financial Supervisory Service said Wednesday that the amount of outstanding household debt in repayment at the end of last month was up by $7.9 billion from the previous month. That's more than twice the amount recorded in April. In addition, household credit hit an all-time high in the first quarter of this year. Household credit refers to credit purchases and loans by the financial institutions. Bank of Korea data shows that household credit totaled roughly $992 billion as of end of March, up 1.1% from the last quarter of 2014. Meanwhile, the country's total outstanding debt was well over $1.16 trillion last month, up 1.2% from the month before. The increase is the second in 2 months and the biggest in more than 9 years. The financial watchdog attributes the debt increase to the country's record low interest rate of 1.75% and spring moving season, which caused a jump in household transactions. But some experts say it's a little too early to be concerned.
What's more important than the mounting household debt is a person's repayment ability. If those with a supporting salary are borrowing money, the rising amount of debt isn't too bad of a problem.
While some experts say the recent debt increase is due to seasonal factors, others say the borrowing trend is likely to continue. They say more needs to be done to contain the problem, which will hamper consumer spending, leading to slower growth. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
The Korean economy showed signs of recovery in April and May and will continue to improve. That's according to the Bank of Korea Golden Book, the equivalent of the U.S. Federal Reserve's Beige Book released today, which monitors economic activities. The book shows recent gains in the manufacturing and service sectors provided a boost to the domestic economy. Low oil prices and a pickup in the housing market led to improved consumer sentiment. The report predicts consumers will spend more, but snowballing household debt and low employment rates may offset those gains. An appeals court in South Korea has ruled slightly in favor of Seoul authorities in a tax refund suit against U.S.-based Lone Star funds surrounding the purchase of a local skyscraper. Kim Hyun-bin has more on the case.
The Seoul High Court, partially upholding a lower court's decision, said Wednesday there is a legal basis for the Yeoksam Tax Office to levy roughly $58 million in corporate tax on Lone Star funds for the purchase of a local skyscraper. In 2001, Lone Star purchased and sold the commercial high-rise in Seoul's Gangnam area, gaining little over $224 million in profits. At the time of the purchase, local tax authorities withheld 50% of the sale proceeds and levied a little over $90 million in transfer income tax, and Lone Star filed suit. In 2012, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Lone Star, upholding 2 previous court decisions, and ordered a refund, stating that the $90 million transfer tax violates local tax law. The local tax authorities challenged the ruling, which prompted Lone Star to file a countersuit to cancel the tax. Lone Star had been claiming that it should be exempt from paying the corporate tax because its headquarters was based in Belgium, with which Korea has a double taxation avoidance deal. In Korea's first investor-state dispute case, which wrapped up on Saturday in Washington, Lone Star is suing the Korean government for nearly $4.7 billion, claimed that it was forced to pay unfair taxes, and sell off its stake in Korea Exchange Bank at a loss in 2012. The second round of hearings is set to resume on June 29th. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Now, another case of Middle East respiratory syndrome has been confirmed in Korea, lifting the total number of patients to 5. Health authorities say the disease is very unlikely to spread nationwide, as the first person to contract the virus is the primary source of infection for all the cases. Han De-eun reports.
The 5th person to contract the disease is the doctor who treated the first patient. After developing a high fever and diarrhea, he was taken to an isolation ward for testing on Tuesday, where he was confirmed positive for the virus. This is the 5th MERS case in Korea in 7 days, since the first was confirmed last Wednesday. It may seem like the virus is spreading fast, but the Korea Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says the possibility of the rare disease spreading to other parts of the nation is very low.
That's because the primary source of infection for all the confirmed cases is one person, the first patient. There has been no secondary or tertiary infection.
Authorities have quarantined the doctor's family members in their homes while maintaining the home quarantine for the roughly 60 people who have had any kind of contact with the first 4 patients.
In order to enhance the efficiency of the home quarantine, we have deployed more welfare workers to watch over them.
Meanwhile, one more person suspected of having contracted the disease has been taken to a designated hospital for tests in Jeollabuk-do province. She's known to have stayed at Doha Airport in Qatar, where a number of MERS cases have been reported, for 2 hours during transit before landing in Korea. The CDC, however, downplayed speculation that the virus is spreading quickly, saying her symptoms are closer to an average cold than MERS. The test results are expected on Thursday. 한다은, Arirang News.
Korea's birth rate is picking up. According to Statistics Korea, a total of 40,400 babies were born this past March. That's up 6.3% from last year. That's the highest on-year increase since the agency began collecting data related to this in 2000. It's been 3 years since Korea's monthly birth rate surpassed the 40,000 mark. An official from the agency explained that more women between the ages of 35 and 39 gave birth in March. The report also showed the country's marriage rate also spiked in March with an on-year increase of 8.8%. That's all from us for now. More coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time.